My heart sank as I realized. The scent was a silent, persistent marker of a secret I was never meant to uncover, a secret that would soon shatter everything. 4 years, I had believed our marriage was a safe harbor, a sanctuary built on trust, shared routines, and gentle, unspoken promises. My wife, Caroline, and I had cultivated a life that many envied. Quiet mornings over coffee, leisurely walks in the park, and evenings spent laughing over small, intimate moments. Our friends admired us, and our families often said we were the picture of harmony. I prided myself on being an honest man who wore his heart on his sleeve and never indulged in the slightest pretense. I even took care to avoid things like cologne, believing that authenticity lay in simplicity. Yet, as the years passed, I began to notice an odd, persistent detail, a scent that didn't belong to me, but seemed to follow her every time she returned home. At first, I rationalized it. Perhaps it was a new perfume she had bought, or maybe she had simply chosen to wear something special for a night out. But as the weeks turned into months, the pattern became undeniable. Every evening, no matter how ordinary the day had been, Caroline's return was heralded by that unmistakable, alluring fragrance, a cologne I recognized from a boutique I had seen advertised in a magazine. It wasn't a scent I'd ever chosen for myself, and it certainly wasn't a fragrance I wore. And yet, it clung to her, woven into the fabric of our daily life. I remember the first time it struck me, a cold autumn evening when I was waiting for her in our living room. I sat there with a book in hand, the lamplight casting soft shadows across the room, when the door opened and she stepped in. Instantly, that familiar scent hit me like a tidal wave. For a moment, I froze, my mind struggling to reconcile the image of the gentle, caring woman I loved with the intrusive, foreign fragrance that now enveloped her. I watched her smile, oblivious to the silent turmoil that raged within me, and a chill ran through my body. Had she started dating someone new? Was I missing something? The questions, once merely passing thoughts, now settled like heavy stones in my chest. At first, I attempted to brush it off. It's just a new perfume, I told myself, convincing my heart that nothing was amiss. But the scent persisted, night after night, until it became an inescapable presence, a secret marker that whispered of a life I had never known. I began to notice other small signs, a quick, almost unconscious glance at her phone when I entered a room, hushed conversations on the other end of a call, and subtle shifts in her behavior that I had previously dismissed as trivial. All these tiny, disparate clues coalesced into a growing suspicion that my wife was hiding something from me, something that went far beyond a new fragrance. Driven by a mix of confusion and an urgent need for truth, I started to pay closer attention to the details. I began by scrutinizing our household routines. I took note of the days she returned late from work without a clear explanation, the nights when her laughter seemed forced, and the moments when the cologne scent was particularly overpowering. The more I observed, the more the evidence of deception took root in my mind. Each time I caught a whiff of that cologne, it was as if I were inhaling a secret that was slowly eroding the foundation of trust one had built over the years. Late one rainy evening, as I sat in the quiet of our living room, I couldn't contain the swirling mix of doubt and despair any longer. I reached out to our bank statements and household records, trying to see if there was any correlation between her sudden cologne-laden arrivals and other unusual expenses. To my dismay, I discovered a series of charges from an upscale boutique that specialized in men's fragrances and grooming products, items I had no recollection of ever purchasing for her. The more I pieced together, the more it became clear that the cologne wasn't just an innocent change in perfume. It was a deliberate, recurring signal of a secret life I had been kept in the dark about. I began to document every detail in a worn leather journal, a chronicle of my creeping suspicions and the slow, painful realization that something was deeply wrong. I wrote down the dates and times of her arrivals, the intensity of the cologne scent, and the fleeting expressions on her face when she thought I wasn't looking. Each entry was a step deeper into the labyrinth of betrayal. I found myself questioning every shared moment, every quiet evening we once enjoyed, now tainted by the possibility that behind every affectionate smile, a lie was being carefully concealed. The turning point came one chilly night when, after a particularly long day, I decided to confront my own fears. I sat alone, the rhythmic patter of rain against the window a somber backdrop, and allowed myself to fully acknowledge the truth that had been gnawing at me for so long. My wife's return home, always marked by that irresistible cologne, was not the simple act of wearing a new fragrance, it was the unmistakable sign of an affair. The realization struck me with such force that I felt as though the ground beneath me had crumbled. Every cherished memory of our time together, those shared mornings, the laughter during family dinners, the tender moments of intimacy, now seemed to be built on a foundation of deception. I spent the next few days in a haze of painful introspection, my mind racing with the implications of what I had discovered. I revisited every conversation, every silent moment, searching for the signs I had once dismissed. The evidence was too overwhelming to ignore. I felt a deep, unyielding sorrow, a profound grief for the loss of trust and the realization that my once perfect marriage was nothing more than an elaborate facade, crumbling under the weight of hidden truths. Haunted by the scent that had become the emblem of her betrayal, I resolved that I could no longer live in this state of painful uncertainty. I began to gather every scrap of evidence that could confirm the suspicion that now tormented me. I discreetly recorded the times she left the house, noted the places she mentioned in passing, and even tried to match the charges from our bank statements with her mysterious absences. Each new piece of evidence was like a puzzle piece snapping into place, a mosaic of deceit that revealed a hidden life I had never imagined. Now, as I sit in the dim light of my study with that journal open before me, my heart heavy with the truth that I have come to know, I understand that I stand on the precipice of a choice that will forever change my world. I must confront this betrayal, demand the truth, and ultimately decide whether to let it shatter me completely or to use it as the catalyst for a new beginning. The scent of cologne, once a trivial detail, has become the symbol of everything that was lost, the trust, the shared dreams, and the comforting illusion of our perfect union. In that moment of quiet devastation, I resolved to find the strength to face the woman I once loved, to peel back the layers of deception that have hidden our true reality for far too long. With every beat of my broken heart, I prepare for the confrontation that I know will soon follow, a confrontation that promises to expose not only the secrets of our marriage but also the painful path toward reclaiming my own identity from the ruins of betrayal. After that fateful morning when I discovered the inexplicable gym membership charge, I entered a state of restless vigilance. Every day since then, I've been watching, counting, and piecing together the subtle clues that now litter the fabric of our daily routine. Outwardly, I maintained the calm, collected facade of a devoted husband, but inwardly, a relentless storm of suspicion and anxiety churned. It wasn't just the odd expense on our bank statement, it was the way Melissa's behavior had shifted imperceptibly, like a well-rehearsed lie slowly coming apart at the seams. For several days, I found myself scrutinizing every moment with an intensity that felt almost obsessive. I began to notice things I'd once dismissed, the way she checked her phone with furtive glances whenever I entered the room, the unexpected late returns from errands, and the almost imperceptible tension in her voice when discussing her day. My mind, now hyper-aware of every detail, slowly assembled a disturbing picture. I wasn't convinced it was just a harmless new habit or a forgotten gym membership, something more was clearly at work. That nagging membership fee had been the catalyst, the spark that set off a chain reaction. One evening, while sitting alone in our dimly lit living room with only the sound of rain tapping against the window, I made a decision. I needed irrefutable evidence. I began by discreetly going through our monthly statements and cross-referencing them with the days Melissa mentioned she was busy at work. It didn't take long for the discrepancies to pile up. There were charges from an upscale boutique she'd never mentioned, receipts for dinner at a restaurant we'd never visited, and, most disturbingly, a series of unexplained hotel reservations on nights she claimed were spent at home. My pulse quickened with each new anomaly. I started using a simple tracking app on her phone under the guise of helping with our family's safety, rationalizing it as a precaution. Every evening, I'd sneak a glance at the location history, and each time, it told a story that contradicted the life I thought I knew. There it was, a pattern of visits not to the gym or the usual spots, but to a particular hotel, one that lay on the outskirts of our suburban haven. The hotel wasn't grand or ostentatious, it was a modest establishment with a discreet charm, a place where a secret could be kept without too much fanfare. And yet, its name kept appearing in the logs, stamped with dates and times that aligned with Melissa's unexplained absences. I remember one night in particular, the app confirmed that around 8 p.m., when she claimed she was finishing up work, her phone's location was registered at that hotel. My heart pounded so fiercely I could almost hear it echoing in the quiet of the night. I spent that night rechecking every detail, meticulously noting down the timestamps and cross-referencing them with our conversations. Each confirmation felt like a blow, a physical weight pressing down on me until I could breathe. Determined to document everything, I created a digital dossier, a collection of screenshots, tracking logs, and handwritten notes that traced a pattern of deception. I organized everything chronologically, like assembling a puzzle where each piece was a stark reminder that my wife's life had been divided into two distinct parts, the life she claimed we shared, and a hidden world that I had never known existed. As I compiled the evidence, I began to notice that her behavior was changing subtly. She started locking her phone more frequently, and when I was around, she would often rush through her routine, as if eager to disappear into the anonymity of our home. The once comforting hum of our life together now rang hollow, a constant reminder that every little detail was a potential clue in the unraveling of our shared truth. I found myself haunted by the scent of cologne that always clung to her, an aroma I knew I never wore. At first, I dismissed it as a change in her personal style, but now it took on a darker meaning. The cologne wasn't her signature perfume, it was a scent that belonged to someone else, a scent that lingered as an invisible marker of her secret escapades. I began to correlate every time I detected that foreign fragrance with the moments the tracking app reported her presence at the hotel. The connection was undeniable, a pattern that pointed to a life lived far from the gentle routine of our home. Each discovery deepened my anguish, but it also steeled my resolve to find the complete truth. I spent nights alone in our study, the soft glow of the desk lamp illuminating pages upon pages of carefully kept notes. I wrote down every incident with the precision of a man who had no choice but to face the reality of his crumbling world. I questioned every whispered excuse and every subtle glance that I had once brushed aside, and with each answer that the data provided, my certainty grew. This was not a case of mistaken identity or a forgotten membership, it was a deliberate, sustained effort to keep a secret hidden in plain sight. The physical evidence was irrefutable, yet the emotional weight of the truth began to gnaw at me. I questioned whether I had been too complacent, too trusting of a love that I assumed was infallible. The juxtaposition of our once perfect life with the clandestine moments documented in my dossier was almost too much to bear. Every page, every timestamp, was a painful reminder that the world I had known was a carefully curated illusion, and that behind every affectionate smile and tender embrace lay a hidden narrative of betrayal. Amid the mounting evidence, I began to anticipate the inevitable confrontation. I spent days rehearsing what I would say, weighing the necessity of exposing the truth against the fear of shattering our fragile connection. I wanted to confront Melissa not with explosive anger, but with the cold, unwavering clarity of irrefutable facts. My heart ached at the thought of the conversation that would soon tear apart the last remnants of our shared past, yet I knew that it was a step I could no longer avoid. Every night, I reviewed the digital dossier until the details became as clear and harsh as the light of dawn. I also began to question the impact this discovery would have on our wider lives, the whispers of neighbors, the shock in the eyes of family members, the potential judgment from friends who had always seen us as the embodiment of marital bliss. The prospect of our private tragedy becoming a public spectacle filled me with dread. Yet, the necessity of truth outweighed my fear. I knew that silence would only prolong the agony, that living in the shadow of uncertainty was a fate worse than facing the consequences head-on. With each passing day, my resolve solidified. I recognized that the gym membership was merely the catalyst, a single, deceptive transaction that had unraveled an entire web of hidden lies. The real workout was not in the gym at all, but in the secret life that Melissa had been leading, meticulously recorded in location data and supported by unexplained expenses and changes in her behavior. The more I uncovered, the more I realized that our lives had been divided into two starkly different realities, one that I had shared with her, and another that she had carefully concealed. Now, with my digital dossier complete and my mind a swirl of painful clarity, I find myself standing at the precipice of a decision that will alter everything. I know that the moment is coming when I can no longer hide in the shadows of suspicion. I must confront the betrayal and force the hidden truths into the light. The weight of each discovered secret presses upon me, yet it also drives me forward. I have come to understand that the truth, however devastating, is the only path to reclaiming my dignity and rebuilding a future that is honest and real. As I sit in the solitude of my study, surrounded by the evidence of a secret life and the painful echoes of a marriage built on illusions, I prepare myself for the confrontation that looms ahead. I have spent too many days in a state of silent torment, each heartbeat a reminder of the trust that was broken. Now, with a deep, steadying breath, I resolve that I will no longer allow these hidden lies to define my existence. The path toward the truth has been long and agonizing, but it is a journey I must complete if I am to emerge from the shadows and rebuild the life I once believed in. The day of reckoning arrived like a tidal wave breaking over the shore. I awoke before dawn to a chill that wasn't from the autumn air but from the deep, hollow pit in my stomach, a premonition that everything I once held dear was about to be stripped away. I sat for long minutes in utter silence, the ghostly echo of that mysterious gym membership and the persistent, clinging scent of cologne that she never wore by choice haunting my thoughts. Every detail had conspired to lead me here, to the moment when the carefully curated facade of our marriage would finally be shattered. In those first 100 words of my waking nightmare, my heart thundered. The quiet of the pre-dawn was shattered by a single, damning truth: a gym membership charge I never recognized, and a trail that led to a hotel room, where secrets were as palpable as the cold air on my skin. In that moment, the life I knew splintered into 1,000 broken promises, and I realized that nothing, not even love, was immune to betrayal. I had spent the last few days in a relentless spiral of suspicion and mounting evidence. Every evening, as Melissa returned home, an incongruous fragrance of an expensive cologne clung to her, a scent I knew I'd never chosen for myself. I had been careful to note the inconsistencies, her excuses for late returns, the way she'd quickly lock her phone when I approached, the furtive glances she cast at her surroundings. I traced her movements using a discreet tracking app and uncovered a pattern I could no longer deny: regular visits to a hotel in a part of town we'd never mentioned, a stark deviation from her usual routine at the local gym. Each notification from the app was like a knife twisting in my chest, every timestamp a silent confirmation of a life lived in secrecy. With a heavy heart, I compiled every scrap of evidence into a digital dossier, a mosaic of screenshots, tracking logs, and annotated receipts that painted an undeniable picture of betrayal. I spent countless sleepless nights poring over this dossier, each detail a shard of glass that slowly chipped away at the foundation of our shared life. I questioned every memory, every tender moment we once celebrated, wondering how I could have been so blind. My journal overflowed with raw, unfiltered words of pain and regret, capturing the bitter irony of a marriage I had believed was unbreakable now lying in ruins. Then came the moment I could no longer bear the crushing weight of uncertainty. On a cold, overcast afternoon, I gathered my courage and arranged for a confrontation. I set the scene in our once familiar dining room, now transformed into a silent arena of truth. The table was set with the same care we once reserved for joyful family dinners, but today it bore the heavy evidence of deception. I placed the dossier in front of me, each printed screenshot and log entry a testament to the secret life Melissa had built behind my back. My hands were steady, yet every heartbeat pounded with a mixture of sorrow, rage, and a desperate longing for clarity. When Melissa finally came home, her face, usually so full of warmth, now carried a shadow of apprehension. I greeted her with the same calm I had worn for years, but my eyes betrayed the storm within. "Melissa, we need to talk," I said quietly, my voice measured but thick with unshed emotion. I gestured toward the folder on the table. For a long, agonizing minute, the room was heavy with silence. The evidence lay there, undeniable and raw, a montage of lies that refused to be ignored. I could see the panic flicker in her eyes as she hesitated, a single tear threatening to break free. Her voice was barely a whisper when she finally spoke. I didn't know how to tell you," she stammered, her words trembling with regret. But I pressed on, my tone steady despite the crushing weight of betrayal. "Then explain this, Melissa. Explain why every time you came home, you smelled of cologne, a cologne I never wear, and why your phone is now so guarded. How long has this been going on? Who have you been seeing?" Each question was not an explosion of rage but a quiet, inexorable demand for the truth that had been so long concealed. Her defenses crumbled slowly under the relentless barrage of evidence. In a torrent of stuttering admissions and tearful apologies, she confessed that she had been meeting someone, a secret affair that had blossomed under the guise of a new gym membership and secret outings to a downtown hotel. She mumbled about feeling unappreciated and a need for excitement, as if those explanations could somehow justify the elaborate deception. The words fell flat, hollow echoes against the undeniable truth that now lay exposed before me. I felt my heart break all over again with each feeble excuse. The betrayal was not a momentary lapse but a calculated, sustained erosion of our trust. The room seemed to close in around us as the reality of her confession sank in. I recalled every subtle sign, the late nights, the guarded phone, the cologne that wasn't mine, and felt a profound sense of loss for the marriage I had once believed in. The perfect life we'd built together, the shared dreams and quiet routines, all turned to ash in the face of her secret. I sat there, numb yet burning with a fierce determination to reclaim my dignity. I told her that I could no longer live in the shadow of her lies, that the truth must be the foundation of whatever future remained for us, even if that future meant walking separate paths. After that painful confrontation, the days that followed were filled with a heavy, oppressive silence. Our home, once vibrant with the hum of shared laughter and whispered conversations, now felt like a mausoleum of broken promises. I retreated into isolation, spending long hours alone in the study, rereading every detail of our conversation and every piece of evidence in the dossier. Each page, each screenshot, was a reminder of a trust shattered beyond repair. I questioned every memory and every shared moment, wondering how I had allowed such deception to creep into the very fabric of our lives. The public fallout was inevitable. Our family, who had always admired our seemingly perfect union, now looked at us with pity and unspoken judgment. Whispers began to circulate at family gatherings, and the warm, supportive community we once knew turned cold and distant. Friends and neighbors exchanged sympathetic glances that cut deeper than any accusation, and the weight of their disapproval pressed down on me like an unyielding force. I could see that our once cherished reputation was now marred by scandal, a painful reminder that the truth, no matter how devastating, has a way of echoing far beyond the walls of a home. In the midst of that storm, I sought refuge in therapy. My counselor, with her patient and empathetic guidance, helped me navigate the labyrinth of emotions that threatened to engulf me. Healing is not about erasing the past, she reminded me during one particularly long session, but about accepting it as part of who you are and using it to forge a stronger, more authentic future. Slowly, her words began to permeate the layers of my grief. I started to see that while the betrayal would forever be a scar on my heart, it did not have to define my entire existence. Determined to rebuild, I embarked on a journey of self-discovery that was as painful as it was transformative. I reconnected with old friends, the ones who remembered me not just as a husband, but as a person with passions and dreams independent of my marriage. Their quiet support and genuine concern helped me to see that I was still whole, even though the trust one once cherished had been shattered. I took to long, solitary walks in the early morning, letting the cool air and the gentle rustle of leaves remind me that life, in its raw beauty, continues despite even the deepest wounds. I also returned to my long-neglected love for writing. Every day, I dedicated hours to pouring my heart onto the page, capturing the tumult of emotions, the bitter taste of betrayal, and the tentative steps toward healing. My journal became a trusted companion, a space where I could confront my pain with brutal honesty and, in doing so, begin to forge a new path forward. I wrote poetry that was as raw and unfiltered as my shattered heart, essays that chronicled the slow, arduous process of rebuilding trust in a world that had once seemed so certain. With each word, I reclaimed a piece of the identity I had thought was lost forever. The journey was far from linear. There were days when the memories would surge up like an unstoppable tide, a glimpse of her laughing on the phone, a flash of cologne in the evening light, and I would feel the old sting of betrayal all over again. In those moments, I would retreat to the solitude of my study, letting the tears fall as I reread the evidence and allow myself to feel the full weight of my loss. Yet, even in those darkest hours, I found a small ember of resolve, a determination to rise from the ruins of our shared past and build a future on my own terms. One particularly transformative afternoon, I attended a quiet art exhibition at a local gallery. Surrounded by paintings that captured the raw intensity of human emotion, I found myself drawn to one large canvas depicting a shattered mirror, its broken pieces reflecting a myriad of vibrant colors. The image spoke to me on a profound level, each shard, though fractured and scarred, contributing to a new, intricate pattern. In that moment, I recognized that even though my heart had been shattered, the pieces could be reassembled into something uniquely beautiful. That realization, painful as it was, sparked a quiet hope within me, a belief that from the ruins of betrayal, a new identity could emerge, one built on truth, resilience, and a hard-won wisdom. As the weeks turned into months, I slowly began to let go of the need for endless retribution. I understood that while confronting the truth was essential, holding on to the raw anger would only keep me chained to the past. I started to see that forgiveness, though it might never erase the pain, was a vital step in reclaiming my own life. I chose to forgive not because I wanted to absolve the betrayal, but because I wanted to free myself from the constant, relentless burden of bitterness. With each small act of letting go, a forgiving word, a moment of vulnerability, a step toward self-care, I began to feel a faint glimmer of renewal. I also reconnected with my family, reaching out to those who had always believed in the sanctity of our union. Although the scandal had marred our reputation, there were still voices of understanding and compassion among our relatives. Quiet conversations at family dinners, a supportive hug from a long-forgotten cousin. These moments helped to remind me that I was not defined solely by the betrayal that had upended my world. Slowly, I learned that while the truth of my wife's secret would forever leave its mark, it did not have to dictate the entirety of my future. Now, as I sit by my window with the soft light of early morning spilling across my desk, I reflect on the long, arduous journey that has led me here. The day I uncovered that hidden voicemail, the night I found evidence in a hotel room that shattered the illusions of our marriage, and the painful confrontation that followed, each moment is etched into my soul. I have come to understand that the pain of betrayal, as all-consuming as it may seem, is not the end of the story. It is merely the catalyst for transformation, a brutal, unyielding reminder that nothing in life is ever as simple as it appears. I look to the future with cautious optimism. I know that the wounds of betrayal may never fully disappear, that there will always be moments when the memory of that fateful day pierces through the veneer of everyday life. But I also know that with each new sunrise, I am given the chance to rebuild, to redefine what trust and love mean to me. I have learned that true strength lies in the ability to confront the darkest truths and to emerge with a heart that is both scarred and resilient. The journey of healing is long, and the road ahead is uncertain, but I am determined to move forward, one step, one breath, one new beginning at a time. This is my rebirth, a transformation born from the wreckage of a shattered union, a painful yet necessary emergence from the depths of betrayal into the light of a new day. I am no longer the man who once believed in a perfect, unblemished love. I am a man defined by the courage to face the truth, to endure the storm of emotions, and to build a future from the fragments of a life once filled with illusions. With every heartbeat, I choose to embrace the truth, however harsh it may be, and to use it as the foundation upon which I reconstruct my identity. I will not allow the memories of that hidden hotel room, the scent of unfamiliar cologne, or the echo of that cryptic voicemail to paralyze me with despair. Instead, I will transform them into a testament to my resilience, a reminder that even in the face of the most profound betrayal, there exists within us the capacity to rise, rebuild, and ultimately, find hope. As I close this chapter and prepare to step into the uncertain light of tomorrow, I carry with me every painful lesson, every bitter tear, and every hard-won victory. The road to healing stretches out before me, fraught with challenges and steeped in the raw, unfiltered truth of what has been lost. But with each step I take, I am reminded that the human spirit is capable of incredible renewal. I choose to walk this path with my head held high, knowing that even though the perfect illusion of our past is gone, the future is mine to forge, a future built on authenticity, courage, and the quiet promise of a new dawn. This is not just an ending, it is the beginning of a long, transformative journey toward a life where the scars of betrayal become the roadmap to strength, and every painful memory is a stepping stone toward a brighter, more honest tomorrow. And as the first rays of the new day break through the lingering darkness, I know that I will rise, reborn from the ashes of what once was, ready to embrace the promise of renewal with an unwavering heart and a spirit that refuses to be broken.